Semi-arid zones have poor soils and an unfavourable climate for agriculture. To feed a growing population, more and more land is cultivated in Africa. This pressure on the land leaves the soil with little time to restore its natural fertility. When soils are not sufficiently fertilized, crops do not develop well. And like human beings, plants that are weak are more easily attacked by diseases and other parasites. One of the major parasites is striga, a weed that sucks the juice and nutrients from cereal crops such as millet, sorghum and maize, and causes great yield losses. To help these crops to better tolerate the devastating effects of striga, it's necessary to feed them well by applying manure, compost or mineral fertilizer. To cover an entire field, we need large quantities of manure or compost, as well as a lot of labour. On the other hand, mineral fertilizers are costly and not always available in the market, and so often not within reach of smallholder farmers. To resolve the problems of poor soil fertility and to fight against striga with limited means, some farmers in Niger apply microdoses. Microdosing consists of applying small quantities of nutrients that the plants need to each planting hole or stand. If we bring a cart with manure to the field, we broadcast it on about 1/4 of a hectare. Now that we've learned about microdose application, with 1 cart of manure, we're able to cover a field of more than 1/2 a hectare by applying to the planting pits. Compared to broadcasting, the localized application of microdoses requires less manure, compost or mineral fertilizer. When we were small, our parents broadcast 2 bags of 50 kilograms of mineral fertilizer per hectare. Now with the microdose, only 20 to 30 kilograms is needed per hectare to obtain a good yield. Applying organic matter in the planting hole also allows the soil to retain its humidity. Moreover, by microdosing, the plant immediately receives nutrients to develop after it has germinated. This helps it to better tolerate the effects of striga and to yield more. Let's listen to the Vice President of the Federation of Farmers' Unions in Maradi about how their farmer field school evaluates the effect of microdosing on striga. To count the number of striga, we measure 20 centimeters around each millet plant, and we count the number of striga plants within that radius. In the plots with microdose in the planting pit, we had 2 to 3 striga plants. On the other hand, in the plots without microdose, we had 15 to 20 striga plants. Now that we have learned the benefits of microdosing, let's see how to do it. Microdosing is done with either organic or mineral fertilizer, or a combination of both. When soils are hard, dig small holes well before sowing and put some manure in them. The wind will bring sand and small organic materials to the holes. When the first rains arrived, you can sow. As the soil will stay humid longer, the young plants will have a higher chance to survive. For sandy soils, however, manure is placed in small heaps before sowing. So how do we do this efficiently? Transport the manure to the field. Make small heaps in lines, taking into consideration the sowing density. After rain that moistens the soil, establish planting lines to the west side of the heaps. This will reduce the negative effect of the wind on the young plants. At weeding, these small heaps of manure are spread around the base of the plants. On the other hand, if you have compost, it is better applied at the base of the plants at thinning stage, because compost releases its nutrients to the crop quickly. Now that we know about microdosing with organic fertilizer, let's see how it's done with mineral fertilizer. When sowing the seed in a pocket, add 1 or 2 pinches of fertilizer next to the seeds before closing it. Applying small amounts of phosphorus fertilizer at sowing helps the crop to develop a strong root system and better resist striga. Some farmers only use a few kilograms of fertilizer per hectare, and to reduce the workload, they pre-mix it with the seed. If you do this, mix no more than 1 kilogram of fertilizer per kilogram of seed. Mixing more fertilizer per kilogram of seed increases the risk of burning the seeds or young plants if there's a dry spell after sowing. Let's listen to how women at Gada Iya village in Niger do it.
Mataki wanda muka ɗauka ga rage wannan aiki na shirka.
To reduce labor, at sowing, for 3 measures of millet seed we add 1 measure of fertilizer. We then mix these amounts. 1 person makes the holes, and the other takes care of the mixture. You take a pinch and you put it in the hole.
Ana iya sawa a gauraye wannan hatsi da wannan taki. Mutum ɗaya yana yin sari, mutum ɗaya sai ta da wannan taki.
Depending on the availability of money and labor, you can also apply small amounts of fertilizer per stand any time after sowing, preferably after a good rain. Just before flowering, you can also incorporate a pinch of urea in the moist soil beside the crop plants. Microdosing helps to boost yields with a minimum investment in mineral fertilizer. Whatever the degree of striga infestation in your field, the millet that has received a microdose will feel it less. The damage will be reduced. For instance, if you harvest 20 bundles of millet heads where you've applied a microdose, there where you haven't, with the striga attacking, you'll even find it hard to harvest 10 bundles. Let's summarize what we've learned. Cereal crops that are not well nourished will be more sensitive to striga attacks. Microdosing consists of placing small quantities of manure, compost or mineral fertilizer directly to the planting hole or stand and allows the crop to better develop. This helps them to better resist striga and to yield more. Microdosing allows you to use small quantities of fertilizer more efficiently with a good harvest and is less wasteful compared to broadcasting. If you want your crop to better resist striga and give better yields, try microdosing.